By 3 in the morning, the hospital sounded like a dream retelling itself, monitors murmuring and IV pump complaining in a polite beep. The floor scrubber making long, patient arcs down the hall. Dr. Rebecca Hale rinsed her hands and watched. The foam slip away, a little ritual that kept her thoughts from fraying. Night float made the world's small one corridor, a handful of rooms, a stack of charts with stories that asked to be told carefully. Fives needs you, the unit clerk called, pushing a note across the desk with a peppermint taped to it. New admit, short of breath. Bed 8. Rebecca tucked the peppermint into her pocket like good luck and headed down the hall where the lights were always a little too bright. Bed 8 was a collage of blue Glowpulse oximeter numbers breathing, a chest rising quick and shallow. A nurse stood at the bedside, one palm on the rail, voice steady enough to talk a storm back out of a field. "Hey, Mr. Alvarez," she said. "I'm Bella. We're going to get you comfortable. Doctor's here now. You're not alone." Rebecca stepped into the light and the scene slowed into its pieces. Bella's hair was tucked into a loose knot, a pen tucked above her ear like a small antenna. There was a flash of a fern tattooette. Her wrist before the cuff of her glove covered it. Her eyes were the kind that listened. She handed over the vitals with the clean precision of someone who believed details were a kind of care. 60 years world with a history of COPD. Post-flu. Bella said. Satting 88 on 2 liters, Tachi at 114. Affibril, he hates the mask. She tipped her chin toward the nasal cannula Mr. Alvarez was trying to argue with by pure will. "Okay," Rebecca said, voice dropping into the warm register she used for rooms built of fear. "Mr. Alvarez, I'm Dr. Hale. We're going to help your lungs rest a little. May I listen?" The question steadied the air. He nodded. They moved like a unit without breaking their own edges. Bella raised the head of the bed, coached slow breaths. Fetched the non-invasive ventilator and, with the practiced ballet of elastic straps and reassurance, helped fit it over a face that was learning how to trust plastic. Rebecca listened crackles. Where there should have been glide a wheeze, like a door that needed oil then ordered nebs. It's a diuretic, a blood gas. The small constellation of actions that let a body remember itself. 3 breaths in. Bella counted softly as the mask hummed. "Good, and out. You're doing it." The numbers obeyed by degrees. 90, 92. The stern line between Mr. Alvarez's eyebrows softened. Somewhere a printer spit out labels with immaculate indifference. Rebecca looked up to find Bella, already looking at her, not for praise. Not for instruction, more like confirmation that the same room had happened to both of them. The corner of Bella's mouth tugged into the hint of a relieved smile. "He likes you," she said, light. "He likes the oxygen," Rebecca said. But her own mouth had trouble pretending it didn't want to mirror that shape. They finished. The admission, the tiny civic tasks that make care legal, consent signed. Home meds reconciled. Allergies confirmed 3 ways. When Mr. Alvarez slept in small, brave stretches, they stepped back into the hallway where night gathered itself in. "The seams. Coffee?" Bella asked, tilting her head toward the family lounge where the machine brewed something that tasted like habit. Rebecca almost said no. She guarded the thin edge between alertness and tremor, like doctrine, but the word that came out was yes. They drank from paper cups that warned them they were hot. From the lounge window, they could see the dark parking lot and the cold yellow of the streetlights. Bella blew across her lid and grinned. "Welcome to Five's Tea. We trade peppermints like currency and hoard warm blankets like dragons." "Noted," Rebecca said. "I'm supposed to be stern. I'm very bad at it." "Good," Bella said. And then, gentler, "You were kind in there." Rebecca shrugged, uncomfortable with applause in any key. He was scared. "Everybody is at 3 a.m., Bella said. She glanced down at her badge as if to remember where she belonged. "I'm here most nights. Charge nurse on weekends. If you need a translator for our eccentricities, I'm fluent." "Duly warned," Rebecca said, and learned the weight of Bella's laugh. which was not loud but had the rare gift of making a sterile hallway feel less like a hallway. The pager on Rebecca's hip vibrated once, then again the world knocking. 14 asks for you. Bella read over her shoulder before she did, and then caught herself. I don't mean to hover. Hover, Rebecca said, surprising herself. I like your orbit. Bella's eyes flicked up a quick, bright thing, and then back to ordinary. See you in 8, she said, rinsing her cup. Or sooner, depending on which floor pump decides to discover jazz. Back at bed 8, Mr. Alvarez slept under a warmed blanket that smelled faintly of clean rain. Rebecca checked the mask seal, adjusted the drip by a whisper, and let the room's quiet soak. A thin place in her chest she'd been ignoring. On the way out, she palmed the peppermint from her pocket and set it on Bella's workstation, a small, silly tithe. When dawn finally tugged at the blinds, the hospital felt briefly like a chapel. Tired, honest, full of breath. Rebecca sighed her notes and thought of a laugh that softened fluorescent light. A fern hidden under a glove, a voice that could count breaths and mean it. The day shift would come and turn the world back to daytime. See you, she said to no one, and meant one person anyway. The second night ran quieter, which in a hospital means only that trouble walked softer. Rebecca signed out of the Ed handoff and drifted toward 5 East, with a half-warm tea and the peppermint wrapper still folded in her pocket like a charm. Bed 8. Mr. Alvarez slept under a hill of warmed blankets, mask humming a gentler note. The oxygen numbers held their blue at 94. He blinked when she checked his seal. Better, he mouthed. Better, she agreed. And when she stepped back into the hall, Bella was there, leaning her hip against the medcart, chart in one hand, the other palming a roll of tape the way some people turn a wedding band. How's our favorite oxygen aficionado? Bella asked. Flirting with 95, Rebecca said. Don't tell the others. They'll be jealous. Bella laughed, quick and low. I won't, but the pulse ox might. She nodded toward the window in the charting nook. We've got moonlight. That's worth 2 nebulizers and a prayer. Before Rebecca could answer, the overhead speaker's voice flattened into business. Rapid response, 5 East, bed 12. The words rearranged the hall. Doors breathed open. Shoes quickened. Bella was already moving, tossing the tape. Onto the cart, the pen from behind her ear landing in her breast pocket like a returning bird. In 12. A thin man with a new pneumonia sat bolt upright, eyes wide in a way that always meant blood or air had gotten complicated. His lips were the wrong color. The monitor drew a worried skyline. I can't, he said. And Bella was beside him, palm on shoulder, voice warm as a quilt. You're okay? We've got you. We're going to help your lungs do their job. Rebecca's hands did what residency? Had taught them stethoscope orders, the language of breath translated into labs and gas and a call for respiratory. Bella's hands did what nursing had taught them. Elevated bed. Mask fitted. Tubing unkinked. The small assessment, a body believes because it doesn't patronize. On 3. Bella said to the respiratory therapist who'd arrived, their movements. Already a braid. We're switching to BiPAP ready. 1, 2. The mask seated with a soft thump. The machine found a rhythm. The numbers hesitated and then remembered who they were supposed to be. Rebecca stood at the foot of the bed, writing as if the words could hold the air in place. Increased work of breathing, escalation to non-invasive ventilation, ABG scent. She lifted her eyes and found Bella's. The nurse's lashes were spiked with the humidity from the mask. The fern tattoo peeking from her glove again like a small green certainty. In that look passed a whole debrief. Scared? Okay, keep going. Minutes. Later, the room softened. The man's shoulders fell from his ears. His wife, who had stood in the doorway like a statue shoved to the museum's edge, began to cry quiet tears that had been waiting for permission. Bella slid a chair into her knees without making a show of it. Sit, she said, and pressed a tissue into a hand that would not unclench on its own, out in the hall. The adrenaline unspooled in a wave that made Rebecca aware of her own pulse, steady but opinionated. She washed her hands longer than necessary. When she turned to the sink's paper towel dispenser, Bella leaned into the doorway. Hair escaped from its knot. Eyes inked with fatigue and something like relief. "Stairwell," Bella said. 2 minutes of cold air that smells like dust and bad decisions. "Lead on," Rebecca said. The south stairwell was empty, and honest gray paint. Numbers stenciled on landings, the faint mineral smell of a building that had learned everyone's secrets and kept them. They stood shoulder to shoulder, not touching. It's the way strangers sometimes do at bus stops when they're deciding to be friends. Bella flexed her fingers. A tremor she didn't bother to hide. "My hands always shake after," she said, almost amused at her own biology. "During, I'm Beethoven. After, I'm a wind chime." "It means you care," Rebecca said. "It means your body caught up to what your head handled." Bella tilted her head, considering that like a lab result worth believing. "You always sound like you're putting a confident arm around the world," she said, "even when you're ordering a Bee Gees." "I practice sounding like it until I believe it," Rebecca admitted. "Some nights it's ventriloquism." He smiled, the kind of small exchange that sits exactly where it belongs. A floor below. A door opened and closed with the sigh of the building taking another story into itself. "I should say a thing," Bella said. "Eyes on the middle distance where truth lives, 'cause life is messy and hospitals are messier. I don't date people I have to call in the middle of the night about potassium. I like my heart, but I like my license more. If I'm misreading Ustal Mayand, I'll file this under night shift hallucinations and we'll be fine." Rebecca let the cool stairwell air steady the thought that had been pacing her ribs. "You're not misreading," she said. "Plain. I like your orbit, remember? But yes, patience first. Lines first. We don't make the work carry our chemistry." Bella nodded, relief and disappointment braided into something almost like grace. "Good," she said softly. "We can be excellent at both." They stood another moment, the silence active and companionable. Rebecca reached into her pocket, found the peppermint, and pressed it into Bella's palm. "For when your hands forget they're not wind," she said. Bella unwrapped it and popped it into her mouth like a sacrament. "Payment accepted," she said, words bright with mint. "Come on. The 4 pumps are feeling jazzy, and somebody's grandmother is going to declare the BiPEP a personal affront." They walked back into the hive, not closer, not farther, exactly side by side. In 12. The monitor traced calmer weather. In 8, Mr. Alvarez dreamed under a blanket that smelled like clean rain. The night returned to its hum. At 5, when the sky pinked like an apology, Rebecca signed notes with a steadier hand. She didn't look for Bella and still found her hat. The end of the hall, head bowed over a chart, hair escaping. A small green fern peeking like a promise that waited on the other side of rules and dawn. By midnight, the storm pressed its face against the hospital windows and refused to leave. The weather alert crawled across every screen. Visitor hours shrank. Night staff got texts with too many exclamation points and the word shelter. Somewhere a plow coughed. The helipad lamp glowed like a small moon with nothing to land. Rebecca signed out of the Ed 25st. With the calm she wore like a coat. The unit was busier than busy 2 flu holds. A brittle diabetic, a grandmother who'd decided BiPAP was undignified. At bed 8, Mr. Alvarez snored softly under a hill of warmed blankets, numbers obedient in their blue. In the hall, Bella moved through tasks like a lighthouse steady scene, working even when the room didn't say thank you. "The cavalry is us," she said by way of hello, tucking a loose curl behind her ear with the back of her wrist. "Half. The float pool is snowed in. I doubled rooms and bribed the universe with hot packs." "I brought a stethoscope and unreasonable optimism," Rebecca said. "Will that do?" "It'll have to," Bella answered, and handed over a folded census like a map. They made a circuit. In 12, the pneumonia man from the night before slept calmer. In 14, a young woman with brittle asthma stared at the ceiling like it was a test. "I hate needing help," she said, and Rebecca said, "Same," and wrote for what would make her lungs kinder to her pride. In 16, an elderly couple argued lovingly about who had the worst knees. Bella shifted pillows with a grace that made dignity look easy. At 2, the calm cracked. Bed 19's call light stung the hall. A family stood in the doorway, grief already in the room like weather. The patient, Ms. DeMarco, had been failing all week. Tonight, the numbers announced what the body had known. Her daughter's hands fluttered, a bird trapped in a room that used to be home. She didn't want machines, the daughter said, breathless, as if she had run to the door of this decision from far away. Bella stepped into the doorway first, voice warm as a blanket from the warmer. "We're going to keep her comfortable. You don't have to do this alone." Rebecca followed with the words that made comfort legal and real. A pause order. Morphine titrated to breath, oxygen for ease and not for numbers. She pulled a chair. Close. No speeches, just presence. Bella dimmed the lights to dusk. The storm made its own hush against the glass. They stayed. They didn't narrate. When Ms. DeMarco's breaths grew farther apart, her daughter's hand found Bella's without, asking Bella let it, and then, after a beat, asked softly, "May I stay right here?" "Consent in even this. Please," the daughter whispered, when the last breath was small and complete. Rebecca listened to the quiet and said the time in a voice that didn't crack. Bella pressed the call button with an economy that honored the moment. There were forms, and there was the work of washing a body with respect. And there was a daughter who needed water and a chair, and someone to look at her like she hadn't failed. After, stairwell called them again. Cold air rose like truth. Bella rubbed her forearms, not quite shivering. "Some nights I think the job is just making room safe for endings," she said. Then someone's grandkid brings a glitter poster, and I remember beginnings too. "First month as an attending," Rebecca said, surprising herself, "I lost a patient who looked like my aunt. I said the right words and then couldn't find my car. The security guard walked me around the lot like I was a ghost who needed directions." She exhaled. "I still don't know if I'm doing it right." "You are," Bella said, no ornament. The stairwell made a small, honest silence around them. Snow thickened on the narrow window sill. Dawn was a rumor. "I've been thinking," Bella said, eyes on the painted 3 on the landing, "about lines that keep us brave, not small. My schedule flips to days next month. Charge on weekends, regular on weekdays. You're off nights after this block." "Next week," Rebecca said. The fact rose in her chest like a buoy. Then clinics. Fewer 3 a.m.s. More coffee that isn't an apology. Bella nodded, muscles in her jaw easing like a decision made. "When we're not working the same nights, not in the same crisis when. You're not the doc I call about potassium at 2 a.m. Would you want to? Get a coffee that is exactly coffee." Rebecca felt the question land and hold. "Yes," she said, plain. "But let's keep our drawers labeled. No shop talk unless we both ask. No debriefs that put us back in rooms we've already left. No touching at work," Bella added, a smile ghosting. "Not even high fives, no matter how flirtatiously the pulse ox behaves." "Cruel," Rebecca said. And their laughter tugged at the starch in their scrubs and loosened it. The pager on Rebecca's hip buzzed. A softer knock this time lab's back, adjustments needed. "We should go," she said. "The 4 pumps are getting ideas. And the grandmother in 10 is sharpening her argument against the mask," Bella said, pushing off the wall. She paused, then held out her hand, palm up, empty, not a dare. "For the stairwell, may I?" For a second, Rebecca saw all the rooms they'd been in, all the rules that it held. She placed her palm over Bella's warm, brief. A promise with a clock. Yes, they separated like professionals who weren't pretending. At 5, Dawn arrived late and stubborn, light bluing the snow into something that looked almost soft. In the hall, the warmed blanket cart steamed faintly. In 19, a daughter slept, the chair pulled close to an absence that did not feel like failure. Rebecca signed her notes with a steadier hand. On her way past the nurse's station, she set a peppermint by Bella's keyboard without a word. Bella, without looking up, slid it into her pocket like a secret that could wait. By the time the plows carved a spine through the city and the hospital thawed from white noise to ordinary hum, Rebecca's last night on float had begun to unspool. Rounds were quieter, the rapid pager coy. She handed a peppermint to the clerk, like a tithe, and signed her final notes. The familiar signature suddenly looking like a door closing politely behind her. Bella was at the board, hair pulled cleanly back for once, a sunrise-colored scrunchie corralling what the storm had refused to tame. The fern tattoo flashed as she capped a dry erase marker. Day shift, starting Monday, she said, the words casual and bright as a new badge reel. Human circadian rhythm. Controversial. Clinic for me, Rebecca answered. Less. Jazz from the four pumps. More blood pressure cuffs and gentle scolding about salt. Lucky ducks, Bella said, mouth quirking. I made good on the coffee date. Do you still? Yes, Rebecca said, faster than professionalism would. Prefer she moderated. Yes, out there. They kept the rules like a shared language, no touches at work, no secret corners. When a code was called on a different floor, they moved in opposite directions without flinching. At shift change, the unit poured its stories into day shift hands. Rebecca hung back by the elevators, the peppermint wrapper crackling like a nervous thought in her pocket. Bella passed by with a stack of charts and a nod that would have looked like nothing to anyone else. To Rebecca, it was a bright thread through a crowded tapestry. Saturday, noon. The cafe on the corner had windows that knew how to hold light. In daylight, Bella was the same, and not dimples appearing with less effort. A softness where the hospital had taught her to armor. Rebecca arrived early enough to rehearse, not sounding like a discharge summary. Hi, Bella said, stepping into the square of sun that their table had claimed. Jeans, boots, a sweater that looked like it knew how to be kind to skin. No badge. Lanyard, no pen behind the ear. She seemed smaller without the work and larger without the fluorescent lights. Hi, Rebecca echoed, scooting the extra chair with a knee. Ground rules. Bella grinned. I love that you love rules. Okay. No shop talk unless we both need it. If we accidentally talk about potassium, the other person can cry pineapple and we go back to pastries. We state needs out loud. We don't try to fix each other. Agreed, Rebecca said. She set her palms on the table because they didn't know what to do otherwise. I also reserve the right to compliment your competence without turning it into a debrief. Loud. Bella said, I reserve the right to tell you when your brow furrows like you're trying to solve me. Spoiler, not solvable. They laughed. The waiter brought coffee that smelled like forgiveness and 2 slices of lemon cake draped in sugar. For a while, they let ordinary details make a raft. Bella's brother, who moved to Tucson and sends cactus pictures in February. Rebecca's habit of running at the ugliest hour before dawn. The way Bella learned how to cook rice in a microwave during nursing school and never looked back. The way Rebecca still heard her med school anatomy professor in the shower reminding, hers sternly about fascia. Tell me about the fern, Rebecca said, nodding at Bella's wrist when the sweater sleeve fell back. Bella turned her arm. The ink a small green certainty against skin. First year on 5s, she said. I kept thinking I needed to be an oaken, movable, strong shade for everyone. Then I helped a family through a night that felt like a storm with no edge and realized ferns are older than trees. They bend. They survive floods. They look fragile from far away and aren't. I wanted that reminder. Rebecca's chest went soft in a place she kept defended. Peppermints, she offered in return, tapping the wrapper. My grandmother carried them. She said when you can't change the taste of a room, change the taste in your mouth. She was a nurse. Course she was, Bella said, eyes warm. That explains the way you stand. Like you're listening for what the room doesn't know. How to say? They walked after, cups in hand, down a street newly made of slush and hope. The sky had the pale, blank look of a page waiting for whatever handwriting winter would give it next. On the corner, a kid in a puffy coat declared war on a snow pile and lost with cheerful dignity. They stopped at the small park where the storm had found every surface and given it a temporary sculpture. I worried, Bella said, nudging a drift with her boot, that you only made sense to me in stairwells. That maybe my crush was 3 a.m. and adrenaline-shaped. I worried I only made sense when I was useful, Rebecca answered. That without orders and signatures, I'd be a blank prescription pad. Bella looked at her, head tilted as if taking in a new admission. I like you useful, she said. I like you when you're not. I like the way you look at lemon cake like it might tell you its past medical history. Gluten intolerance, Rebecca diagnosed solemnly, then softened. I like that you ask before you steady a hand. I like that you name the weather. They stood with the kind of quiet that wasn't absence. A dog shook off in a sparkling halo. Somewhere a plow made a final pass, more habit than necessity now. May I? Bella asked, switching to the voice she used for consent, which had become a kind of affection all by itself. Yes, Rebecca said. And the word felt like stepping into the right-sized room. The kiss was daylight small. Exact, a warm punctuation mark in cold air. Not a declaration, not a Rushmore, like a page turn. When they pulled back, neither apologized for the pink in their cheeks. They looked like people who had gotten through a storm and were deciding which streets were safe now. Friday check-ins, Bella ventured. A text. Are we good? Anything tilting? Anything joyful? Yes, Rebecca said. And if the floor tilts, we say pineapple. They turned toward the cafe again, toward seconds on lemon cake, toward the kind of ordinary that felt like a privilege. On Monday, fives would hum without them for a while. In clinic, Rebecca would listen to a stranger's lungs and give away peppermints. On the unit, a charge nurse would teach a new grad the art of warm blankets. At the corner. Traffic paused, brake lights red as heartbeats. Rebecca reached for Bella's hand, paused, asked with a look. Bella nodded, palm warm. Grip steady. It's change of shift, she said, smiling into the pale sun. See you out there? Spring arrived the way nurses arrive to an understaffed shift, Hurley practical. No patience for argument. On Rebecca's kitchen table, a small fern Bella had brought in, a chipped blue pot, began to do its quiet magic. Fiddleheads, loosening like fists, deciding to open. Next to it sat a glass jar of peppermints. The white and red, the only drama they tolerated at home. Fridays had turned into a ritual of 3 sentences. Bella, good, tilt, joy. Rebecca, good, slept, tilt, a stubborn migraine in room 4 and my reflex. To fix people with silence. Joy, my 10 a.m. brought me a lemon cookie. Bella, good, ate lunch. Tilt, new grad cried into her badge. Joy taught warm blanket origami. Pineapple had saved them more than once. A single word that closed the door on shop talk when an old room tried to pull them back inside. The boundary felt less like a fence every week and more like a trellis, something growth could lean on without getting strangled. They learned each other's off-duty selves in increments. On a Tuesday, Rebecca arrived at the hospital courtyard with tangerines and a thermos of tea. Bella brought 2 forks and a lemon bar split into nearly equal halves. They sat with their backs to the brick, sun pushing at the edges of their scrubs, and pretended pigeons were colleagues with messy documentation. Tell me something not in your chart, Bella said. Rebecca peeled a tangerine with the concentration she gave to naughty differentials. I wanted to be a music teacher until I realized correcting tempo would turn me into a tyrant, she said. Medicine is still tempo, only sneakier. Bella grinned. I thought I'd be a park ranger. Turns out I like people more than bears, even when they bite. A week later, the day went hard for both of them. Bella's patient coded and came back breathing and dazed. Rebecca told a woman the word chronic and all the air went out of the room. They texted pineapple without details and met at Rebecca's apartment where the light behaved and the kettle did what it was told. "May I sit close?" Bella asked at the couch, a habit that never felt like formality. "Yes," Rebecca said, and scooted the jar of peppermints within reach like an altar. They shared the kind of quiet that collects when two people are careful with each other. Bella touched the fern where it was unfurling. "They call this crozier," she said, "like a shepherd's staff. I liked learning there was a word for this particular kind of opening." Rebecca watched her profile. The curve of fatigue. The curve of resolve. "There's a word in clinic I like. Expectant management," she said. "Not waiting, exactly. Watching with purpose." Bella laughed softly. "We're a walking glossary." She turned her hand palm up on the cushion. Not a dare, an offering. "May I?" Rebecca rested her fingers there, light, then steadier. "You may." They learned to be terrible at things together. Rebecca burned the first pancake and laughed like a person who hadn't learned that failure is proof of oxygen. Bella tried to run at Rebecca's speed and discovered she liked walking better if the destination was a bakery with stubborn croissants. They took a morning off and drove 40 minutes to a trail where the path threaded through a green that felt older than rules. Ferns laced the understory. The creek considered its options and chose forward. "Your world," Rebecca said, and Bella shook her head. "Ours," she corrected. "Both of us are more than what the beepers say." At a footbridge, they stopped. The air smelled like damp earth and fresh starts. Rebecca felt the itch to narrate ease into stillness. "I keep worrying I'm only useful," she said, finally. "That if I'm not handing someone a plan, I disappear." Bella's thumb traced a half circle against Rebecca's wrist, a movement small enough not to scare the moment. "You're allowed to be a person who eats tangerines and forgets the words for birds," she said. "You're allowed to need. I won't file it as a symptom." "And you?" Rebecca asked. Bella considered. "I worry I'll become a hallway," she said. "People will move through me and I'll forget I have doors." Rebecca tightened her hand, not fixing, just holding. "I'll knock." They went home with mud on their cuffs and the uncomplicated fatigue that follows honest walking. On fridge, Bella stuck a small magnet shaped like a pineapple and wrote in dry erase above it, "Good. Tilt. Joy." It was ridiculous. It made them both laugh. On a bright Saturday, they ran into each other at the hospital without planning to the cafeteria. Coffee line, its own kind of triage. They didn't touch. They didn't disappear either. Change of shift. Bella asked, lifting her cup. "Change of shift," Rebecca said, and felt what it meant now. The hinge between work and the life. They were building that didn't need fluorescent light to exist. They made no vows except the ones they kept making and remaking. Ask before. Speak plainly. Choose daylight. At the door of the apartment one evening, Rebecca set her grandmother's peppermint tin on the little table by the keys. Bella placed the fern on the sill where it could see morning. It's ordinary things that had learned, with care, to mean more. Together than apart. "See you out there," Bella said. It's the old joke stitched into something new. "Out there," Rebecca echoed. The city hummed. The fern uncurled another green question into the room, and both of them were brave enough to answer. Enjoyed the story. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps the love stories coming.